these are ways for me to sort of give people updates on what's been going on to date, which I can do. And they're also a chance for people to sort of meet each other. We've had last call, we had a few folks from sort of Rochester, sort of New York State area. Before we've had people on the Humber River, sort of near the Toronto sort of area. And so then we get sort of people who are, say, traveling to Lake Superior, people who live on Lake Superior, and having these really interesting connections. And so these meetups are really good for people to sort of see who else is working on projects. And so we'll just do a quick introductions, and then I'd love to hear from each of us of a bit more in depth. Paul has already been talking about a bike ride, which he can just summarize again for us. But I'm Paul. I'm Canadian, working for Great Lakes Commons for a couple of years. Sort of call myself an animator, and my work is really sort of supporting this work through various actions in terms of the communications, sort of the community work. And so I'm actually traveling for the next 5 months. So these journey projects, I hope to sort of visit and be a part of as I go. And so my original introduction to this work was the Great Lakes Commons map, which is a collaborative map for people to add sort of voice, sort of text, photo, video, sort of place-based storytelling. And so I've been sort of hosting these meetups, and I think we're pretty much ready to go with the plans that have been made to date, which I can expand on more, and any sort of last minute or sort of things that we sort of figure out either tonight or more one-on-one in the weeks to come. And so I'm glad we've got a nice new group here today. And so I'll pass it over to how about to the other Paul, since he's already warmed up, and then we'll just go around.
Okay, I'm Paul Flansburgh. I'm the chair of the Sierra Club Atlantic Chapter Great Lakes Committee and a member of the Rochester Regional Group, with which Sally is also a member. And we're hoping to have a local event in conjunction with the Great Lakes Commons to have to promote a basin-wide appreciation of the Great Lakes. And our event is, well, right now my idea is to have a coordinated bike ride and collaborate with a number of local organizations within our area, among which are youth movements in organic farming, and I'm sorry, I lost myself all of a sudden. So, and the bike ride, biking community, in particular, biking youths, called the Concord Cruisers in the city of Rochester.
Wonderful. Okay, in Rochester. Okay, Rochester.
Right.
Great, brief intro, Paul. Thanks so much. It's so exciting to I'm a cyclist as well, and so it's interesting. We've got so many different modalities here of journeying and motion, taking our cues from the sort of adaptability of water here. And so thanks for that quick introduction. Who wants to go next?
I'll go.
Yeah.
Okay. I was actually invited to this meeting by Jennifer Pate.
Wonderful.
She's part of Expedition, and she's starting the initiative Love Your Grapes. And I actually met her for the first time this morning over breakfast at 7 a.m. bright and early.
So you're a bakery as well.
She sent me this link, and so what I do is I'm the coastal outreach specialist at the Lake Huron Center for Coastal Conservation. So we're a not-for-profit organization that does a lot of work on the southeast coast of Lake Huron. And so we're located in Goderich, and we what I do is I'm leading a plastics reduction campaign that's kind of centered around cigarette butts on the beaches. So that's a big problem in this area. So we're trying to get people motivated to do a lot of shoreline cleanups. And we're also installing lots of educational signage and cigarette butt receptacles, and we're recycling the cigarette butts. So that's kind of my background and what I've been working on. So yeah, I'm excited to be here and listen in and everything. So
Okay, and so you're in Goderich, Rhiannon?
yes.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, great. Why don't we stick with the Lake Huron theme, and Edward could say a few words.
Honey, my name is Edward George. My friend Danielle Sinclair, who's not on the call, her and I are canoeing the southeastern base of Lake Huron for 1 month to Garden River, which is near Sault Ste. Marie. And we'll be staying on the land every day. And I should say that I'm Anishinaabe, that is Ojibwe. So we're going to be eating traditional foods, staying on the land, inviting community to come and visit us as we pass through their territory. And it's a form of ceremony that we're going to be observing. And it's a lead up to the Great Lakes Gathering happening July 14th to 17th. And we'll be collecting, I guess, insight into how the people of the Great Lakes, the Anishinaabe of the Great Lakes, could better work for the water. And we'll be sharing that information that we gather and what we learn at that Great Lakes Gathering when we get there a month after.
And thank you so much. I love, this is why I love my work so much, is this I think the Commons is this sort of common ground where there's all these different kinds of care that usually goes unnoticed or is hidden or needs our collective support. And I really want to stress for this journeying project, we are trying to sort of create this where the sum is more than the parts. And I find a lot of water organizations, with good intention, focus on the quality of the water as a sort of chemistry sort of project, and which is great when you're, when I want clean water. But I think the work that also needs to be done is reconnecting ourselves to the water, through a greater purpose, thinking about our identities of what are our reciprocal responsibilities and relationships to the waters, and really, the waters kind of own us more than we own them. And so I feel like this work, hopefully we can have not just multiple projects happening this summer talking about the Great Lakes, but there can be some learning between people and between projects, so where we can think about the traditional lands that I, as a European-based person, is a guest on, and in which this nation called Canada is a guest on, and really trying to think about, we talk about reconciliation in the sort of larger narrative. And so I feel like this work is not just about chemistry, but about these relationships and these kinds of responsibilities. And so, again, it's the mix of all this that I think makes this work, for me, really special. There's somebody on a phone call here also from the 226 area code. Did you want to go next?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, you. Yeah, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. I just called in to see what was happening. Really, I don't have much organized. I'm a student at Guelph, and I've just been working on an audio documentary that's actually exploring some of the themes that you were just speaking about. It was based on a water gathering that was held in Ottawa. That was part of a research project, but it brought together First Nations and Inuit and Métis groups and people, as well as researchers. And I just made a documentary of that. It's going to be released soon.
What's your name? Your name is?
My name's Lindsay.
Oh, Lindsay. Great. Thank you.
And yeah, so I'm just I still want to continue on in that vein. I really enjoyed the experience of making an audio documentary and sharing things in a narrative form. And so yeah, I just thought I would find out what else is happening around water, and that's pretty much it. The documentary will be up on the website is waterdialogues.ca. It'll be up next week. And yeah, it's really inspiring to hear a lot of these initiatives that are happening. So thanks for welcoming me.
Great, and there's lots more. And so for those using the computer, there is, I think, 5 of us. So just for those using the phone, right now there is 7 people on this call, and we're just doing a go around of who we all are. And for those who are on the computer, they're also at the bottom part of the computer screen, I suppose, there's a chat box. And if there's any sort of information you'd like us to share or comment on, I would encourage you to add it to that. You can also save the chat to your computer to make it easy. And for those on the phone, I am taking notes, and I will be sending an update around to make sure that we don't lose anything here. And before we move on to the next person, Lindsay, did you know that there's going to be a canoe journey, I think, leaving from Paris down the Grand River to encourage people to think about the Two-Row Wampum and the Haldimand Proclamation and the traditional governance and treaty rights of the Haudenosaunee in the area?
I did not know that. When is that happening?
Oh, sure. Well, it's happening early July, and I can tell you a lot more. But I'll put the website in the thing later. But yeah, these are part of the connections that I think are interesting, knowing that you're in Guelph and all the rest. And so let's talk further about that. But I just wanted to highlight that before we moved on
Great,
to the introductions.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, Paul's got his camera on now.
I didn't realize I had it off until just now.
Okay. Sometimes having it off is you can sort of just do whatever you want. Sometimes I get a bit self-conscious sometimes. Wonderful, wonderful. Who wants to go next? Dawn?
Okay, so my name is Dawn, and I'm from Toronto, in the High Park, Rossensville area. And I live near the Great Lakes, near Lake Ontario. And my interest in water has been long time, very, very long time. I lived in India near the Hooghly River, near the tributary of the Ganges. And so I'm very excited about water and activities and everything, because I know 80% of our bodies are water. So, really. And I don't have any organizations, but I joined the Great Lakes 2 years ago. Or was it a year? I found out about it 2 years ago when I went to the Water Dance Festival 2 years ago. And I found out about the Great Lakes at one of the exhibits. And then I met Paul in person this year at the Water Dogs Festival. And I'd like to support some of the activities that are going on, like whatever's going on in Ontario and somewhere around close by. So that's my interest.
Okay, wonderful. I've got a slow burning idea, Dawn, of having a Toronto event, but it's still slow burning, and so it'd be nice to have. I haven't been prioritizing Toronto too much because I'm not going to be there. But actually, Jen, with the expedition sort of microplastics project, there is an expedition leaving from Toronto. Maybe you can go on a boat, Dawn, and be part of this plastics research or part of a shoreline cleanup.
Everywhere at work and different meetings, I've been telling people, stop using plastic bottle. I've been blasting everyone. And on Earth Day, I made a petition for Toronto with this Change.org organization to ban all bottled water in Toronto. I don't know how many signatures I've got, but I put the picture of the water bottle, the Water Brothers bottle up, showing that that's the kind of water bottle you have to use. Because you know how they announced that Paris is blue water free on Water Day, March 22nd. So that's what I did on Earth Day, April 22nd. I made a ban for all bottled water, plastic water bottles.
Well, maybe the Toronto event could have that focus, but let's hold it there for now. And we've got one more introduction to have by Sally, I guess.
Yes, I'm Sally Shearer, and I'm part of the Great Lakes Committee from Sierra Club. And basically right now I'm just kind of listening and seeing what's going on and what's, might possibly be added.
All right.
So.
Okay. That's our, And so I guess we've introduced everyone. I see a couple of connections here. I definitely see I've got some updates around cycling, and there's this new energy now with this sort of cycling route on the southern shore of Lake Ontario, which is important for many reasons, not only because Paul and Sally live there, but because so far for the larger Great Lakes Commons project, we don't have anything happening on that part of the bioregion, and it'd be nice to have something happening in that area. There's actually a ride, a community ride on Manitoulin Island. For those who don't know, that's sort of between Georgian Bay and it's part of Lake Huron, but Georgian Bay is also there, which I'll be going to. And my plan is to make this sort of, maybe we could use part of this call to help me out with this. I'm going to be making like this, we're going to make like 500 copies of sort of a journey guide. And in this guide, I wanted to make it so that it's sort of travel friendly, because keeping with the sort of hiking, paddling, cycling, walking sort of theme, in which it could be added to people's sort of physical work that could add to their sort of emotional and their sort of mental work here, which could include many components to it. One of the key components I wanted to have was the Great Lakes Commons Charter, but definitely wanted to have such things as, there's actually, for those who don't know, there's actually a song called the Nibi Song, which is a Anishinaabemowin or Ojibwe written song, a very short song talking about loving and respecting the water, which is sung at a lot of water walks. Thought about having something about the Churo Wampum in there. And so a series of elements in this booklet, which, can help people connect and think about, where they're at and where they're at with their responsibilities to water, and to take sort of a pause and to use their journey, be it on a boat or on or doing plastic stuff or doing cigarettes or whatever, to think about, these reciprocal relationships, these values, and just sort of, how we're all sort of sharing in this together. And so if there are elements that you think would be really interesting to include in such a guide, I would love to hear them on this call or via email after the meeting or in the chat box. So I see this bike ride thing in Lake Ontario I wouldn't mind hearing about. And I also hear this sort of these projects on Lake Huron I think would be interesting to hear a bit more about as well, in terms of, what are some of the intentions and goals here? How can this call and Great Lakes Commons make your project, reach new audiences or be successful in your own terms? What type of documentation can we help each other support and share? How do we capture some of these stories so that for those who can't be on the journeys or be in that location, we can have that sort of cross-water conversation. So documentation, Lake Huron, cycling, Lake Ontario, journey guide. I'll stop talking there. So back to the group.
Can I jump in, Paul?
Please.
Okay. What I find very impressive right away about the journey is the map. And you've told us that mapping is part of your specialty, I think. Didn't you say something like that? I
started it, but I'm not actually a mapper. That's the irony of it. But anyways, yeah, I started that Commons map, yeah.
Well, I've been working with 350.org and Popular Resistance, and both of them employ maps along with, they kind of use maps and then they locate different actions on the map, and then people who recognize the area of the map where they're near can go to that particular location. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's possible for Great Lakes Journeys to have a similar kind of a map where they take a map of the basin, and then we could put out an announcement that these are what's going on in your neighborhood, possibly, and we can advertise the map in terms of what's going to happen according to what dates, and have people be enticed into joining that way.
Yep. That's totally doable. I have some of those skills, and I'm sure we could. Do you have mapping skills, Paul?
No, I
Digital
don't.
Mapping?
No, okay. Not at all.
The working idea I've got so far is that with the Great Lakes Commons map, we can create different categories. Right now, there's two broad categories: healing and harming. I think within the healing category, I could add a Journey Project 2016 in there, and all of our efforts that are part of that sort of in some degree or whatever could add our stories with that category, so that they'd be also there together as well. And so we could promote that. And I thought about doing a Google map with links to each of these projects. Everyone's got a Facebook page or a website or a blog or whatever. And so doing a map, a Google map, and to highlight some of these things, just to get the visual of it all. And so it's been on my mind.
So perhaps we could say, join us as we journey. And join us as we journey. One of our journeys is going to be on South Shore of Lake Ontario in the Rochester region. Maybe another one is on the southeast shore of Lake Huron. Maybe another one is in Toronto. And each of these locations has a little point on the map, and people can click on the map to explode the details of that particular journey.
Perfect. I can do that. I can do that totally. So yeah. Okay. Great. And so so for those who are also new to the call, and we've been working with a collaborative Google document for people to add their information to, and I ran out of time, but I started to reorganize that information into a table just to sort of have like, okay, what is it called? Where is it going to be? What do you need? Where is it at? Sort of thing like that. And so I'm going to continue working on that, but that's basically going to be the data the information to be used to make such a map that Paul's now talking about, so that not only can we read about it, but we can see it as well. And so each journey could be a different color, and then you can add, I add text and all the rest of it to it. So I think I'm considering this our sort of last planning sort of meeting. We've really got to start getting into the promotion and getting some of the logistics down, and then ideally seeing where some of these things overlap. And maybe this is where the Lake Huron sort of thing comes into play. But also Paul and Sally, the Children of the Wild performance will be stopping in Buffalo. And I think it would be great to have either the beginning, coordinating timing-wise with the performance. For those who don't know, Great Lakes Commons has been working with a group called Children of the Wild for about a year. And they're doing a cross-basin sort of, production around rewilding and looking at a sort of a post-fossil fuel world. And they're going to be doing 5 different locations, like I mentioned. Their first one in the Great Lakes is in Buffalo. And so I like to sort of see how maybe some of these projects could interact or intercept each other a little bit. So I see Children of the Wild in Buffalo as potential, but I also see Edward and Danielle's ceremonial project and listening to the Waters project, maybe, having a little bit of vibrations with the other Lake Huron work around microplastics and shoreline cleanups. And so that to me is where such the magic happens, where we could support each other logistically, or we can support each other in sort of the positive energy. So
yeah, I was really interested to hear of Edward's work along the coast, and I think that is so fantastic that he's on that journey right now. I used to guide canoe trips actually up in Northern Ontario, so I know that when you're canoeing, you really do feel that connection to the water. So, I mean, for the different categories that you talked about, Paul, I think that's such a good idea so that you said that there's the healing aspect and then the harming aspect. So healing can be so diverse. It could be either something that Edward is doing with this journey that he's just taking by himself or with his family, just to, reinforce his own values, or a healing aspect could be a really big, invasive species removal thing to provide better habitat for native species, or even like a presentation to get people talking about, reducing litter, anything like that. I think that there's so many little subcategories that you could do, and I think it's really important. I guess that's the beauty of this community, is that you're able to not look at all the boundaries between the Great Lakes and the border, and look at that as kind of a strength, and being able to put them all on the map so people can visually see, what happens, the challenges that we face in in Lake Huron are very similar to the challenges that we face in Lake Ontario. And the solutions that we have in Lake Huron, we could share in Lake Ontario. So yeah, I think it's really important what you're doing.
And I want to hear from others, and especially if anyone's got questions for each other. I think now is a good format. But I think Great Lakes Commons was founded on this idea of, acting as if, and the as if may be different for each of us. But I feel like we could agree that the current system, not only in terms of its management protocols, but also the values that underlie those management systems, are failing us. And we could go on and on about what those are, but I think that's why we're here today. We know that, writing a petition to our premier or our governments, or individual actions aren't just going to cut it. There needs to be, we need to start acting as if Anishinaabe governing laws were the laws of the land, as if the idea of ownership was a very suspect concept in today's world, and in which being rooted in a place isn't just about your address on your driver's license. It's really about this idea of again responsibility, and so I think be it these various journeys, people taking the initiative of either doing their own science, of making connections between food and identity and place, using ways in which we're not burning fuel. I mean, I'm gonna have a van for part of it. I'm sorry, but we've heard a lot about people traveling by sailboats, by canoes, by bikes. Unfortunately, one of the people they were going to join, they couldn't last minute, but there's actually going to be a relay run. 3 people doing a relay run around Lake Superior to raise awareness around the largest lake in the world. And so all of I find it not just a coincidence that people have chosen to express their care in ways that are less harmful, both materially and spiritually. So, anyways, questions, more comments, please.
Do you mind if I jump in?
Please, Edward. Yes.
Well, I do like a bunch of different things. I'm always wearing a different hat. And just a couple of weeks ago, I was in a meeting with the ministry, like the provincial ministry here in Ontario, the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. And they're rolling out this new bill that's supposed to pass with flying colors, because apparently this is a 1A priority for the province, is dealing with the environment and climate change. And they had this other guy come in, and he was talking about the cap and trade program that Ontario is going to adopt. And it's basically all these credits to, like they're going to put a tax, I guess, on, but they're not calling it a tax. It's really strange. But anyways, I had asked them, like, what are, like, because it was a First Nations meeting with this ministry. So, they were asking for our knowledge, and they were asking for basically our consent. And, we were all kind of really cautious, and we stopped in the middle part there, and we asked them, is the government or is the ministry willing to go and take on these industries? Because so far it's only been First Nations people, it's only been environmentalists, it's only been, scientists that, try and find a way to deal with polluted, like industries that pollute and industries that pollute on a really large scale. And they didn't have an answer, so they were just kind of shocked. And that's the extent of where what their commitment is. They'd rather do a roundabout way instead of implement new legislation to cut down on it. They're trying to force them through money and through a market system. And that's the extent. So it's really up to people. It's really up to us to take on the responsibility. And from where I am in my little place in the world, there's a lot that one person can do, and there's a lot to be hopeful for, because there's people all around the Great Lakes that are actively trying to find a way to make a big impact on a small budget or on limited resources or in a conscientious way, And that's when we were thinking about doing this canoe journey, that's what we wanted to keep in mind, that, this is our own personal commitment to the water. This is what we're willing, this is as far as we can come in our own personal lives right now, this is what we can do, and share that information, and that's kind of where I'm at as well, is in terms of the Great Lakes Commons, is being able to share that information, what we receive when we're out there,
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, but first, Paul, I just wanted to say hi to Catherine, who's joined us also, I think from Chicago, right, Catherine?
Yes.
Did you want to just briefly introduce yourself? I know we've had emails back and forth, and then, Paul, if you don't mind, you jump in after that.
Sorry, thanks. I got in. I'd like a round of applause.
Okay, well, good for you. Yep.
The old girl did it. I'm an artist and an appreciator of water, and I like to paddleboard, canoe. Believe it or not, there's nature in Chicago. And, I do work related to food system, agriculture, and that certainly has happened to water. And so I've made a series of work related to the Great Lakes and address issues related to water being free and available to all.
Okay.
Imagine.
Yeah.
But maybe not corporations. I'm sorry, did I say that?
All right. This is being recorded, though, Catherine. So
Yeah.
And so just everyone, as a reminder, there is a chat box for those using their computers. So there's a website. I know, Catherine, you've got a blog and all the rest. And so if you want to add that too, and so maybe we'll come. I do know that the expedition project is working on Lake Michigan as well, and so maybe Rana can speak more to that, and maybe we can need some paddleboarders in Chicago taking some water samples. I don't know, but these are part of the conversations that we can have tonight. I think Paul was going to respond to Edward's talk about either documenting this work or about this commitment, perhaps that really is to people taking this commitment seriously. And if each person, was really pure and true to their vision and to how they would like to be in the world, we could get a lot further.
Well, actually, I wanted to comment on a couple of themes that I've heard. Plus, unfortunately, I'm going to have to be terminating my participation soon because I got to run to another meeting. So I wanted to kind of do that as well.
Please, yeah.
So for starters, one of the themes which seems pretty evident, given that we're going to function as if, well, how about as if we're all one community around the Great Lakes, not separate by towns, let alone nations. And so that the theme that echoes that sentiment is global solidarity. And that's something I'm very much involved in with my opposition to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, something that I know there's been a strong movement in Canada against as well, along with CETA and other trade agreements. So I wanted to mention that. And also something that Edward mentioned, well, just in terms of I'm also a member of We Are Seneca Lake. And Seneca Lake is a finger lake that is in the state of New York, and essentially its basin drains into Lake Ontario, and it's under threat from a gas interest. They want to basically store natural gas or methane and propane in empty salt caverns right near the lake bed. And it's a terrible plan, and we're really fighting hard to get it stopped. And so far, it's kind of been arrested from establishing production. But it's one of those things where we can live as if we're not battling corporations. And I know that Paul, you mentioned something about the drama group that's traveling around the Great Lakes Basin, and their theme is a post-carbon fuel-based world. And so I kind of want to focus on that kind of mentality, as if we don't rely on the carbon-based fuels, but we do appreciate the nature that's around us, the nature that, in essence, we're a part of, not a nature in which we have to conquer and solve its problems. Okay, so anyways, that's all that I have to say right now, and I'm about to head to my meeting. I apologize. Oh, you're on you're on mute.
I was typing loudly.
Okay.
So please, between meetings, I'd love to get more logistics, and I'd love to cycle with you as well. And let's promote this. We can work on this. I think it sounds like a great connection between the youth, the food, the bikes. We can make this happen. I think those thoughts around solidarity are key. And I think what's also interesting for those who I'll share the video later. Children of the Wild's also working around these really big themes around grief and working with grief. And I feel like this often gets overlooked by the water NGO crowd, which wants to talk about either issues or about celebrating our successes or loving our waters, loving our water bodies, which is totally great. But I do feel there's almost like a hidden grief that rarely gets talked about. And sometimes I just saw a great speaker, Robin Wall Kimmerer, speak in Peterborough about grief being the mirror of our love. And I think working with these themes of grief and loss, or of conquered, or of alienation, disconnection, I think is part of this emotional work that I feel like also deepens the connection that we have to each other, and to the land. So,
Paul,
some themes.
That's so deep. Thank you for saying that, because grief is something we really have to appreciate, especially as we're watching our environment slip away from us in so many ways. Already, species are dying. It's a terrible thing. Oh, look, I don't want to leave on a sour note. So I'm off to my meeting.
Yes.
Thank you for letting me join, and I will be in contact. Okay.
Be in contact. Thanks so much, Paul.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Well, on that note, connection questions.
I have a question. Do you know Children of the Wild, the troop is coming to Toronto, Ontario?
John, I'm not sure if you're covering your microphone or what's happening, but you're a bit low.
My microphone?
Now it's better. Yep.
Okay. So I was wondering if Children of the Wild are coming to Ontario, Toronto.
No.
Oh.
Interestingly enough, there's another sort of theme here around border crossings and boundaries. And because of the immigration system, one of the members of Children of the Wild can't be in Canada. So, which we hope to highlight for this as well. And I'd love to hear Edward's thoughts if he wants around this whole idea of citizenship and permissions and who we need permission from to travel. And again, maybe the guest host thing coming back into Indigenous territories. But for long story short, Children of the Wild, which is made up of European Americans, will not be coming to Canada because of a border issue. So that's the reality of that.
That's bad.
But
were you looking for me to say something?
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I'm hang on one second, sorry. I'm a Treaty Indian, right? So it's kind of like a hard thing to talk about because we're given a hard time anyways, like we're crossing over. And
Edward, Edward, maybe turn down your volume a little bit. Turn down the volume.
Is that okay?
Oh. Go ahead.
What's happening?
There's an echo. And it's
Oh, yeah.
it's coming through on your end. It's okay. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a hard it's a hard topic for me to talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who wants to go? Well, I think we'll go. We've got. Usually these things go about 90 minutes, and so we're just coming up to an hour. I mean, I could talk all day about I could talk a bit more about other projects. I've already talked about Children of the Wild a little bit. I've talked a little bit about the Churro wampum, and so maybe Lindsay in the Guelph area. So I could speak about the other journeys that we're in contact with. I'd love to, and then if people have questions for each other or getting back to these sort of themes idea, or for those who aren't already sort of committed to being on a journey, what could we do to sort of support your curiosity, and based on what's already going on, how could we add to that? So unless someone has a question or a comment based on what we've already said, I could speak a bit more about the other journeys that aren't here tonight.
I was excited to hear about the expedition. I am not a sailor, but I was excited to hear that there was a collective event going on during one time period. That just is beautiful to me, and I'm wondering what sort of formal things I could do to gather up some energy for what sounds like the August 20th day, just to make something happen that would be visible and realistically doable given my other commitments, that kind of thing. And maybe collecting water on that day. I'd like to know more about that.
Oh my gosh, there's cats everywhere.
Big cat.
He keeps jumping on me, so I think he wants to be part of it.
Of course. Hello, everybody.
So for those, oh my God! For those on the phone, there's 3 callers with video, all with cats in their lap. This is hilarious.
He does not want to be in the water, just so you know.
Yeah, not water lover. Yeah, Catherine, about your wanting to get involved with the expedition, the best person to talk to would be definitely Jen Pate. I was chatting with her. Did she just sign on? No, that's just a
I just put that in.
yeah, so she's kind of coordinating all of that, and I mean, she's amazing. She's just looking for anyone to get involved.
Cool.
And so I think she's putting together, a crew to go on each of the ships. I'm pretty sure it's covering each of the Great Lakes.
Each of the Great Lakes, plus Lake St. Clair and the St. Lawrence. She's doing efforts in all of those 7 locations.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she's making it kind of like a citizen science thing. So you don't have to be a scientist to go on the ship or to help out, which is great. You can, and you don't even need a kayak or a paddleboard. You can even just go on the shore and collect water samples. So basically, I mean, the more the merrier, I would say. The more samples, the better.
Mhm.
But that's definitely something I'd reach out to her about. I think her email is on her website at Expedition.
And the chat here too. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
What
That
is her
beautiful.
website?
I think it's just Expedition, but it has 2 X's in it.
I sent her a couple of emails and they kept bouncing back, and so I still hadn't had the right one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just copy and paste the one I put in the chat box, Dawn, and
I see
the
it.
website is the same, just without her name and the @ symbol. If it's still bouncing, then it's going to be on your end, because that is her email. But
Yeah. She's also, I learned today, she is incredibly busy. She has like a wakeboarding park that she owns. She's doing these expeditions and trying to coordinate all of that. And she's also starting that initiative, Love Your Greats, as well. So, but she's really great at getting back to people and stuff, and really, yeah.
I have a question for Catherine, and again,
Yes.
please, Sally and Lindsay, I know, and just jump in, please. I know you're on the phone, but you're equally here, and so just jump in. But I was thinking about Catherine. We've emailed a while ago, and I'm curious on some of these themes that we've already talked about. Maybe with your art, what type of overlap is there with the themes we're talking about on this journey, and some of the themes in your work, and maybe how your work could be shared. Maybe in this I talked earlier about this guide. I don't think you're on. Maybe maybe a 10, 20 page booklet. We're gonna try and get a couple hundred copies made, which could include samples and sort of illustrations and examples of this type of. I've been talking about it. I'm doing a workshop for grade A students on Monday in Guelph, actually, Lindsay, for this H2O awesome thing. And they're talking about the water cycle a lot, about the ecological water cycle, but I want to talk about the water cycle in terms of like how, you take care of the water takes care of you kind of cycle. And so we're thinking about putting various elements in this booklet to give people a little bit of like poetic mindfulness, sort of ceremonial food for thought stuff while they're paddling, and so something they could carry with them that others are carrying with them as well. And so this maybe because you joined in a bit later, and you haven't got a particular journey that you're a part of yet. Maybe about how you see how your artistic practice may help again animate, illustrate some of these themes.
Sure. Most recently, I applied for a residency, and this is a dream I don't think will come true, but we'll see. At the Kohler factory up in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, they give you expertise and space to make work for 1 to 6 months. And I applied for a residency next year to create bathtubs the shapes of the Great Lakes. So you could actually like bathe in Lake Michigan. And I would really, that's just sort of one incredibly wacky thing that would be mindful at the same time. And I just imagine sculpted faucets of fish that no longer exist. We'll see what happens with that. But that's a much larger scale of work that I've done related to the Great Lakes. The piece I did in 2014 was related to the polar vortex, the first one. And I saw the image of the Great Lakes from Mars that was all white. All of the Great Lakes were frozen. And I was on my way to Buffalo, New York, to represent my work at the university there, and my rental car is sliding all over the road, and I'm crying like, what the hell am I doing? And I realized I was going to see 4 of the Great Lakes on that trip. And I'm like, I'm going to collect snow and ice from each Great Lake and create this porcelain piece that represents those frozen Great Lakes, and then these jars of water that have melted snow and ice. And it was obviously a piece related to climate change and unprecedented cold that never left the Great Lakes region until, there was ice in Lake Michigan very, very late in the spring, let alone Lake Superior. But that kicked off more works directly related to the Great Lakes. And a artist here in town, she says, I'm not a Chicago artist, I'm a Great Lakes artist.
I like that.
And that was really a beautiful thing to me. So I made her a little mini porcelain Great Lakes and sent it off because it was it just really struck home to me. I don't like to think about borders either. I sort of think of landmarks, and most of my life I've been within a mile or two of Lake Michigan, and most wonderful things have happened, and awful things too. And I'm thinking about your the pendulum of grief and love is really quite a beautiful thing, and what that could lead to in terms of an art form. There's something in the art community called relational aesthetics, where the piece isn't complete until the public participates. And I wonder how that could be something where people could participate in an art piece, either where they live or at a central location, that would symbolize that grief and that love, both. Because without one, life is really not worth living.
And Children of the Wild won't be coming to Chicago or Milwaukee, but they will be, I think, Upper Peninsula near near Mackinac, and so we maybe could put you in touch and see if you've got contacts there or you'd want to join them there. I'm not sure how far it is exactly, but a couple hours, I guess.
Where did you say? I'm sorry.
They're definitely, I think they're in Mackinac or Traverse City. I know they're far apart, but
yeah, 5-6 hours.
The exact location, I think it's more Mackinac. The whole Line 5 sort of issue, they've been working with the folks at Flow, which is based in, and they've also been working with Frank Adowagishik, who's a very big player for one of the tribes in Michigan there on the Lake Michigan side.
Mm-hmm.
He's a huge water advocate and has been involved with Great Lakes Commons over the years. And so Frank Adowagishik, they've been talking to him about doing an event on that sort of northwest corner of Michigan.
Mm.
The MIT, I guess you guys call it.
Sure.
I've just learned these things recently.
Sure.
All right.
Isn't Frank the executive director at the United Tribes of Michigan?
Yes, United Tribe. That's yeah. Yes, he is.
Oh yeah, he's my buddy. I know him.
Oh, he's wonderful. Yeah. Okay. So, tell us a story about. So I love to. I mean, Frank's someone everyone should know. Really, he's such an advocate for the Mother Earth. You have a story, Edward?
Oh, we just work on the same because he also works with the language, and I also work with the language. We're at the same same table, and it's like a organization because our language isn't just on this side of the border, so we have to navigate language efforts on either side of the border, and he's our rep from over there in Michigan. So it's kind of cool. Like even this too is like on both sides of the border, which that kind of collaboration and conversation I think needs to happen a lot more because it's a line that people made and we can kind of unmake it if we want to, but I don't know, there's a whole issue of trust, like, I don't know. And dealing with, or just being mindful of the greed, like, just, I don't know, it's a strange little place to be, I think. But yeah, Frank's pretty cool.
Yeah. I recently heard Edward, my friend Tori Crest mentioned, we talked about, she used the word medicine line to describe the international border between Canada and the States. I didn't know, I'd never heard that term before. I didn't know how to understand it a bit more.
Medicine.
What did she say, medicine line?
Medicine line.
Huh.
Don't know what she meant by that. I'll have to ask her. I love my work because I get to learn all these new things. And so Edward, do you know of any folks in Milwaukee? Do you know Margaret Newton, who works with the language as well?
Yeah, I know. We call her Maganit. Yeah, I know Margaret.
Okay, great. Yeah, I did a workshop with her a little while ago, and yeah, great. Okay, good. Because I was passing on her email to Becky for the invites for the Great Lakes gathering, and maybe that's something, Edward, you could tell the group about here tonight of your destination on your journey. About the Great Lakes gathering, which if anybody is free middle of July, I think, it would be a transformative experience to, again, think about the sort of the larger laws that we're all eventually going to be accountable to, and leadership from the Anishinaabe community. So it's happening in July. Edward, do you want to say a bit more about that?
Yeah, well, I'll just give you a little bit of background. So last year I participated on the Sacred Migration Water Walk from Matin, Quebec. And I started in, I guess, southwestern Ontario, right at the base of Lake Huron, where there's Port Huron. And so I was there for a month, and we ended in on Madeline Island in Wisconsin. And so we went to each stopping place in our migration story. We stopped there, and there was a few of us that really bonded. Like, we were there every single day, like the whole journey. And there's a man from Marquette, Michigan as well, and he's going to paddle from Marquette to the gathering as well from the state side on Lake Superior. And he's Anishinaabe too. And we're all like family, like that's in our, I don't know, just the experience brings you to a place of being family with other people that have that similar love for the water, that similar commitment. So, and there's been a lot of work done around raising the awareness for water in our own communities, but also that greater awareness piece. And through the water walks that have happened throughout the years, mainly through Josephine Mandamin. And so anyways, there's a group called the Onaman Collective, who they're a group of artists, but they also do language, they also do traditional ceremonies and various things. And they decided, let's kind of what people were noticing is that the people that have gone ahead to do the work for the water, you take steps, right? You take steps to become aware, become responsible, to reaffirm your commitment, to really get to a place of understanding. And the more steps you take on your own, the further from your community you get. And so we can't go too far without bringing everybody with us, because then we become detached and disconnected from that where we came from. So the Great Lakes Gathering, as far as I understand, is our effort to bring the grassroots people to that level of understanding that we need to be at in order to know what we have to do for the water. Because we have a story about one day, and this was said a long time ago, from an Anishinaabe person. They said one day an ounce of water will cost the same as an ounce of gold. And even when my grandma was younger, that's what my grandma used to say, that her dad would say, one day you'll have to pay for that. One day that won't be free. And then sure enough, in her lifetime, that became true, So we've always had ways of knowing, and we want to bring everybody who may not have that same understanding to get to that place, so we can really do the work that we've been asked to do from the water, through the work that, or through the responsibility, carrying that responsibility, listening. But yeah, it's the great, and I think there's going to be a lot of people there, right? And it's Ojibwe Park and Garden River First Nation on the other side of the border, like at Sault Ste. Marie. Yeah. Probably maybe 1,000 people, I think, will be there, staying on the land, meeting, talking, having ceremony, being on the water, being on the land for 3 days.
That's the best description I've heard of it so far. I've been trying to figure out exactly what it was based on what I've had in meetings. I've been part of a few of the meetings, but thank you so much. That was a real gift to share, Edward, of the sort of story leading up to, and then the intentions being laid today for this gathering in July. And so as you were talking, I put in the Facebook link for the event page for that gathering. I've also put in the link to the Onaman Collective, which is the website of some of the organizers. And so, yeah.
Well, the other really cool thing is that Sault Ste. Marie is a traditional gathering place of people. for a lot of like very large grand councils that were held like way back when, in times of war, we would all gather there. Because if you think about, and even today how we meet, like there's conferences, there's all kinds of things that happen in the Sioux, which is why they make it really expensive, like the hotel rooms. And we just hosted a language conference there, and there were 750 native speakers that came, because it's that place where we've always met, and still to this day it's similar, right? So, and even our our journey, that's how we would have traveled way back when. We would have taken a similar route. We would have do you know what I mean? It's all a lead up to getting to this place, as close as we can get to see what's there for us, what's been left there for us, so we can pick up these responsibilities, and get stronger. Because so far we're losing. That's how I feel, anyways. Like I'm exposed to a lot of various levels and inner workings and things, and I think even the government is starting to realize that we're losing. That things are, with climate change, for example. It's like even the fires in Fort McMurray. Everybody's doesn't know what to think. These are all signs of the time that it's getting more and more urgent to do something, but we can't just run off and do something and not know what we're doing. We have to ask for those instructions, but to ask for that information, very vital information on what we can do that will work, what can be effective with what little we have. Like I was saying, it's only been us. It's only been the people that have a heart. It's the only people that know how to give that have been taking on the brunt of most of this, So that's where I'm at, anyways. Like, I've been training every day. Like I'm really sore. And the other thing too is that canoeing, that's an Anishinaabe thing. But even in our own communities, there's no culture of that left. Very, very very small, and so we want to help that the work that has already been started to bring that back. We're in assistance of that as well. Like this is all been a long time coming kind of feeling. We have to get back our own people. Like that's my focus, because we're there's a lot of struggle too that we have. So yeah.
Wow, yeah, and so I wrote in the chat box, just I wanted to save it because I thought it was sort of coming up for me. You mentioned earlier, Edward, this idea of ways of knowing, and I think on tonight's call and on the previous calls, we have ways of knowing happens in many ways, be they through the sampling of water, the sort of the kind of bathtubs and art installations where people can engage in multi dimensions around ways of thinking through creative means. You talk about the language, and I really love what you're doing and love what Frank and Meg are doing, and Christy and Isaac around. If there's no indigenous culture, there's no indigenous language, then there's no meaning for me. Turtle Island doesn't exist. The best way to protect the waters and the lands is to think about an indigenous, to live an indigenous life, in which place is a place-based identity. And so unless those languages survive, we're so much poorer, and again, ceremony is can work with these themes of grief and loss, but also reverence, things like that. So I just feel like the ways in which we can know things are so diverse, and how powerful they all are.
Yeah. Well, my grandma used to say something to me when I was little. She used to say, if you're not where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there, somebody else will take your place. And I never really got that until I started to run with it. And it's hard to measure. Like for me, it's hard to measure my own level of commitment, what I'm willing to do. I'll go really far. Like for example, over in Peterborough, but I went all the way to Flint because they were having a big water ceremony there, because of the water, right? And here, no one thought that there was going to be so many people, and I had to go around and pass out the tobacco, and I had to go and give everybody smudge. So there I was, just like doing double duty to all these people, having to remember everybody's faces to know if I gave them tobacco and if they smudged. And there was like, I don't know, maybe 500 people.
Ooh.
And so I was by the end of the day, I was so tired. And when you give, that's what happens. You get tired, right? And we always say that blessing comes back to you. Like once you give like that, it comes back. So I was able to keep going after that. I was able to keep focused and motivated to do what I need to do. But I think about what she said, like, if I don't become a part of shaping how things happen, then somebody else will be there, and I don't know who that somebody is. I don't know what their intentions will be when they get there. I don't know if they've created this persona of what somebody should look like or what somebody should be doing, and if they'll do a good job or not. And so what I feel where I want to get to is that for my own commitment would be to ensure that I'll always do a good job, that I'll always make sure that in that moment things can be turned around if they need to be turned around, things can be stopped if they need to be stopped. I won't have to react in fear or whatever, so that it just adds fuel to the fire, Because even in my own home territory, we're dealing with the huge nuclear issue around the Deep Geological Repository, a nuclear issue. And like when we're canoeing, we have to pass this massive nuclear facility, and I feel like in a way that will help shape just even going there, seeing it from the perspective of the water will help shape that, will help there'll be information there for us. There'll be something that we can learn from looking at it from that perspective. And then we can pass that along and help mold that way forward,
That's exactly why I like to paddle in urban areas, because you have to sort of be in the icky,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious on any of these themes for Lindsay. You talked about some of your work, Lindsay. I'd love if you wanted to share some more about what your work was about, or what types of questions you have going forward, Lindsay. I'd be curious to hear some more.
Sure. Actually, it's interesting you bring that up. So the sort of my project grew out of a larger research project that was looking at this question of how can we use multiple ways of knowing to address water issues in Canada. And water, it started as water management, but obviously as we talk about it more, it's sort of a lot more than the word management. Like water's a lot more than a resource to manage, and looking at how do we live with water, what are our responsibilities to the water. And so that's really the key question and motivating thing, I guess, behind this audio documentary that we created. And I'm really excited for it to get out there. I wish it was there now and I could direct you to it, but like I said, in a week the website will be live and it'll be there. And the gathering brought about 30 people together, but there's voices of about 15 or 16 people in the podcast. And that was really important too, that it was in people's own words and voices and sharing stories and experiences. Healing is another big thing that came up. And just how do we work together? How do we move forward and in a good way? So that's what my project was about. And then going forward for me, I need to finish my degree. So I'm and I'm going to be in Yellowknife for 2 months this summer. But I'm definitely committed to this type of work, and playing a role and bringing those messages to a wider audience. That was my part of the motivation for doing the audio documentary, was that these were really, and this wasn't just my feeling, this was a feeling within the group, that we really wanted to capture the sort of the goodwill and the sentiment that we had as a group working on this project, and be able to share that with more people. And so I want to keep going with that kind of work, because I found it.
Okay.
I have a background in writing. I used to be a journalist. I worked a lot in the horse industry, worked with horses a lot. And so this was really interesting for me to work with audio, and I really enjoyed it. So I think there's so many opportunities there, and I'm just sort of, like Edward was saying, like being in the right place at the right time and finding the right projects and stories to be a part of, to be able to share those. And I'm confident that that'll happen. And I just, like I said, right now is a time where things are quite full, but I'm looking to the future and where I'm going to continue with this. And like I said, there's so much opportunity, like being actually in a place and having the sounds of water and being able to capture that in that way. So, and to collaborate too. I mean, the project that is going to be going out there on this website, like I said, it's waterdialogues.ca. It was really a collaborative effort, and it was really great to have the support of everyone who's part of the project. The feedback's been really great. So, yeah.
Yeah, you definitely I think I've got the link here, and so I'll definitely take a look at that and share it. And I see. Yeah, it's coming soon, right? As the website.
Yeah, so like next Wednesday, actually, so the Canadian Water Network funded this research project, and they have a conference next week. And that'll be like the big launch of it. It has to be live by then. It's been a lot of work to get everything together, but.
I'm in Guelph on Monday, Lindsay, for a couple of days actually, with the Wellington Water Watchers. They're having this big grade 8 conference I spoke about. So maybe we'll cross paths, who knows? But
yeah, send me an email if you like. We can try to connect, so it'd be great.
Yeah, I've got your email on the sign up sheet. And just back to audio, I think, Edward talks about ways of thinking about ways of capturing some of their reflections. And so who knows, what format that will be in. And, people choose many ways. And there's, just so you know, there's a guy named Ben Weaver who's a poet and a musician who biked around all the way around Lake Superior last summer. And he's going to use some of his contacts that he's made. He's going to do a series of podcasts about kind of conversation with people from various, I think, 4 different locations around Lake Superior. And so he's going to use as well. And so, he may need some tips. Actually, he's not really that. He's a recorder of music, but he's not a journalist. But he's using his experience as a way to engage with people, and he wants to use that format versus writing or versus video as his way. And so, I think that would be a good intersection of his work on Lake Superior. And some of your work. What geographic range was your work in, Lindsay?
So the project is actually across Canada. So we have people from across the country all come together in Ottawa. And then that's sort of one part of my project, but my focus is in Inuit regions in the north, across the north. So nowhere really specific. We're talking pretty broadly. It's more about the concept and the process and this question of how can we work together with, not just science or not just even social sciences, but like other ways of knowing and traditional knowledge and art and all these things.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. It's almost 8:30, so we may want to wind down for that. And so I've spoken way too much. And so maybe last comments. If someone has a question or comments or something that we really need to follow. I need to follow up on some advice. Yeah.
I've appreciated listening to all the webcasts prior to finally getting on tonight. That's my only comment. Thank you for doing all of this, Paul, and gathering a bunch of strangers who have the same gut response. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's weird recording them because you never know who's going to watch this, people talking about stuff for an hour plus, and then you go and there's like 12 people have viewed it or 14 views or whatever. It's like, who's watching these things? And so and then for somebody who does want to jump in later on, I mean, this is where we talk about process and about as if, right? And so if we talk about that people should be a part of the decisions that affect them, then as an organization, we shouldn't just quarterback how it's going to go. The whole point is to invite us to do this together, because that's where the magic is. That we don't, and plus we don't have the resources. But the way in which I think, again, sort of inspired by others, the method of how you do something is as important as what the goal is. And so by having these 4 gatherings, we're trying to model this idea of that, where is the energy is already out there. We just trying to create a flow or a way to reconnect that energy, and to really, again, and this technology allows us to work over these geographical distances, but really, we're actually all connected. I talk about Lake Ontario as the culmination of the Great Lakes. So whatever you've done to Lake Superior or Lake Michigan, it's in me over here, 70%. And so, that's why that's kind of the thinking behind, the ethic behind the process. It takes longer. It's a little messier. You never know what you're going to get. It's hard to plan for funders, but we're not going to just quarterback this thing.
Nice.
Any other thoughts or closing words?
Me and my cat pal would like to say thanks once again for chatting and getting ideas. I'm going to email Jen again from that email you sent to me and try directly to get something in Ontario for paddling and picking up plastics.
Yeah, you and Jen, Don, should connect about this Toronto voyage for the sailors, and we'll get that going. And I saw Sylvia Plain, who we did an event last fall, paddling Toronto's first highways. We did a canoe across the harbor. Sylvia Plain talked about her work where she does Anishinaabe canoe building not only as a vehicle of transportation, but also as a way of building a culture and thinking about leadership and governance. And so that was a really enriching event. And we may try and do one again this summer before she goes away. And so I've got some ideas of Toronto stuff, but it's just...
I'm just busy the first 2 weeks in July. My daughter's coming from Australia. And so we then I have a play I'm in Parkdale at the Bauman Center.
Okay, great.
So
keep in touch about your dates.
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful.
So thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for chatting.
Thank you.
And getting ideas and sharing our journeys.
All right, are we done? Yeah. Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Okay, everyone, we'll be in touch.
Thanks.
Good night, all.
See you. Bye-bye.
Night.
Bye.